So this is the chapter on devakut, which means clinging to Hashem. Which this is a great segue in, because you can spend all your life doing Jewish things and even studying Torah and never come close to Hashem or the spirit of what, and I think we've all seen people who teach classes, who study classes, but when you really examine their life, can you put that just a little, just slightly?
Oh, too dark.
Yeah. When you examine their life, you can tell, like,
is that okay?
Yeah,
Right now?
yeah,
yes,
that something is amiss. And so this is a problem that every Jew really has to be careful. And part of it is that when we're learning something, we're not putting into action, or the teacher that you have is too wishy-washy and not telling you straight like it is. So, and then there's Yair too. That's always a fun component. So in this chapter it says, clinging to Hashem is one of the 613 mitzvot. And a person should constantly cling to Hashem with great passion as to burning embers of love. There is no greater virtue than this, because everything is contained within it. As important as it is, so too is the difficulty of achieving it, which we just said. It sounds very easy, and when you're in the middle of the class, you feel like, like your spirit is just going up, 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 and up, and then tomorrow you deal with the world, and you're like, you're honking on the horn, you're telling somebody to go kick rocks. It's like very hard to sometimes maintain that. So it says, the degree of success is determined by the deeds of a man and the extent of his daily efforts in the areas of thought, speech, and action. Now I had this great advice I was given to a Rebbitzin, and she always said that if you start something by saying, bezrat Hashem or b'siyata d'shmaya, whenever you're putting Hashem's name right before, it's just going to come out so much better. And she really is right. So this is one of the things that's actually one of my goals, to start putting Hashem, his name right in front of everything, because it kind of slows down. It almost puts a barrier on what you're going to say next. But that is easier said than done.
That's right.
So a man who sanctifies himself in this world is sanctified from above, as is brought down in Yoma 39a. A heavenly spirit will be poured upon him that will purify him and sanctify him. Every man is obligated, according to his ability, to strive with all of his facilities to fulfill the mitzvah each and every moment that he can, and it is a good idea that it should be written in the place where one normally sits, and that is to serve as a sign between his eyes. One who strives to purify himself is assisted by Shemaim, as brought down in Shabbat 104a. So there's a saying that wherever a man would like to go, the Shemaim will help them. And that includes, like, if you want to go do Averot Has V'Shalom, you're going to get a lot of help. It's like you're to catch all the green lights to do it.
Excuse me, can you repeat that source, like the sentence and the source again?
One who strives to purify himself is assisted by Shemaim, Shabbat 104.
Who strives? Okay.
Shabbat 104a. And obviously, that's the Gemara. So behold, our sages in the end of the first chapter of Sotah and Ketuvot 111b said on the verse of Devarim 11:22, and to cling to him, ... Is it possible for a person to cling to the divine presence? It is not written in Devarim 4:24, for the Lord your God is a consuming fire, ? Rather than the meaning of the verse is, one should emulate God's attributes, which is exactly what Schlein said. Just as he is compassionate, so too you should be compassionate. Just as he is gracious, so too you should be gracious. Every man deludes himself into thinking that he already clings to the divine attributes, for all of Israel are people of compassion and the sons of people of compassion. There is none among them who does not treat kindly the unfortunate. So I think sometimes that midot, that character trait, I think like what you were saying, that people go crazy with it.
Right.
It's like having too much compassion is not great. Having too much anger is not great. So this is exactly kind of the thought here. I think that because it's in our nature to be compassionate and be charitable and be the first on the scene to help out, I think it goes too far and we don't know how to draw that line and separate this is not a situation for compassion. Right. And the thing is, it's that if you notice, like a lot of these commentaries, it almost seems like they're contradictory, but they're not. It's always what was that song? Know when to hold them, know when to fold them. That's what a Jew is constantly doing.
Exactly it.
That's what a Jew is constantly doing. We're always figuring out when to hold them, when to fold them. You know what I mean? You have to always make that distinction. Just because we are always compassionate doesn't mean that every situation needs compassion. Sometimes it does need a strict hand there, like the situation with the school. That's not a situation for compassion.
Think of like coming home and having a big fight with my kid.
Right. And of course, what are you going to say? Because he's going to the school you sent him to.
Right.
So it says, however, to truly emulate Hashem's ways, one must be compassionate and treat kindly even his enemy who seeks his downfall. Even if he is a person of bad deeds who stands against and maligns him, one should not withhold his goodness, mercy, and kindness from him. And so obviously we're not talking about terrorist groups who seek to destroy you. So we're talking about, there's always that one person you could do without in your life. That's really what they're like inferring to. And we all have one or two or three. So it says, even in his uses, the self-same good that he bestows upon him to his detriment, he must not withhold his goodness from him, just as the Kadosh Baruch Hu treats his creations. The holy Rabbi Moshe Cordovero has written in great depth and length in his work, Tomer Devorah, about the 13 attributes of mercy, and how it is proper for every person to conduct himself accordingly. I, the poor one, have copied in a condensed form his words, my work, Oret Alim, page 155. Fortunate is the man who listens to him and reads these 13 attributes of mercy at least once a month and strives with all his strength to act upon them with the help of the Almighty. He will succeed and be able to emulate him. So, like every other midot that we struggle with, anger, compassion, which I think sometimes if you're struggling with this midot of I think maybe you may also be struggling with anger.
Right.
And the Ramban did a great letter to his son, and he gives great advice about how he just gives you the practice of the advice, and in time you will see that you're not responding, you're not so reactive. But it is a process, and sometimes it could take a lifetime. It could really take.
Right now, Chabad is giving a class in that, 4 classes.
In the Ramban?
So on exactly what you just said about anger and how to deal with it. It's interesting.
Yeah, and for some people, it really does take a lifetime, for whatever reason, and there are different people have different triggers, and sometimes anger comes out of a sense of helplessness, and that's what it is. Like maybe they don't identify it as that within themselves, but sometimes it is. You feel helpless, and so you're going to strike out with a very loud voice because you feel you've lost your voice. So it says, furthermore, our sages in Ketubot 111b said, whoever clings to the Torah scholars, it is that he clings to the divine presence. So really people who really go against the Rabbanim should probably hear that. Even more than this, they said in Berachot 64a, whoever benefits from a meal at which Torah scholars are present, it is as he benefited from the splendor of the divine presence. However, this was not said about everyone who is referred to today as a Torah scholar. Knowledge is not primary, action is. So there's the very famous saying, people show you who they are, believe them. More than what they say, look at what they do. Especially in this day and age, we don't want to call people out, and so we want to hope for the best because they say such nice things, but they're leading us down into the pit, For behold, Deog, Aktefel, and Yeravam ben Navat were great Torah scholars, yet they lost this world and the next. Our sages in Baba Batra 4a said on the verse of Shemot 22:27, and a prince among you shall not curse. This applies only to someone who does the actions of your nation. The sage to whom one needs to cling is a person who has a fear of sin, precedes his wisdom, and whose actions are greater than his wisdom. He is a person who opens his mouth with words of wisdom, and the principle of kindness is upon his tongue to everyone who sits or dines with him. All the words are words of Torah and morally instructive of the proper way of life. So this is really giving, I think for a lot of us who really there's no shortages of rabbis to listen to, like with the internet and this and that, and sometimes we like what they say. How do you know for sure that this is really somebody who you can grow from in the right way?
Well,
and so this is a good.
You make mistakes sometimes, and then you realize I've done that.
So this is a great way to kind of figure out who is somebody that I should be learning from. So especially when you're going to, when you think of a Rav and you're talking about, life-altering decisions, you want to make sure that person really is clinging with HaShem, because that person will know that what I'm about to say to you, I'm also going to bear the consequence if I lead you astray. And this is Hashem's child. Like, if I love Hashem, I have to love his child and direct them on the right way that's pleasing to Hashem. So these are like really the criteria. But I think sometimes we don't, for whatever reason.
One thing Shlaim said that my friend said to me, that he didn't know the answer to a question. And she was shocked.
Why? He doesn't know everything.
No, of course not.
But
he said he would look, right, he does. But
does.
she was saying to me of so many rabbis that you talk to, that they would never say.
Right, they would just
don't
make up
know.
an answer and just.
Whatever they're telling you, and I appreciate that with him.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that he says he'll look it up, or he's got somebody to
Right.
talk to.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's how they're trained. I'm sure that
Yeah.
he's not the only
Oh
one.
yeah.
It's great, because then you feel like more confident instead of, because some people will just say whatever just to say whatever.
Right, because whatever issues there are, there's always somebody at a higher level that's studying that.
Of course.
Always.
And they're happy for them to talk to. So
It is. It's great. Well, it's the saying, like, even if you only know Aleph and your friend knows Aleph Bet, then they have the responsibility to teach you the Bet. You know what I mean? So it's not a lot, but it's one more than what he knows, and you're obligated to teach it.
She said she's never heard of a rabbi say, "Go look it up."
Wow.
Well, good.
It's too bad. I'm glad she did.
Yeah.
Hear it.
So even the mundane speech of the Torah scholars requires analysis. For even something that appears to be idle conversation, upon further inspection is revealed to be good in reasoning and understanding, in that he wanted to teach a person wisdom or inform him of the amazing kindness of Hashem. And don't you love when Rabbanim do that? When they, like, you're talking to them, and we get this with the Rav a lot. Like, sometimes he's saying something, and he, like, I just learned a whole drasha off of his, like, sentence on tea. You know what I mean? So, and if you ever notice, like, when you hear the stories of the old greats, the Gaons and all that, there's stories about their students, and they were always analyzed why the Rav took a cup and drank it to the left with the sun at a diag, and they were always dissecting every move, because they always figured that there was something to learn. And like Devorah said, last time in the other class that we had, we don't have that anymore. But nevertheless, we do see sparks of that greatness in Rabbanim who are really clinging to Hashem. So it says, all of his words are for the sake of Shemayim, such that one who constantly clings to him will in the end learn from him and will go in the proper way of life and stay on the path of the righteous. About this, our sages say in Berachot 28b, they warned us and said, prevent your sons from engaging in idle conversation and place them between the knees of Torah scholars. And the Tana and Parkei Avot 1:4 also taught us that your house should be a gathering for place of Torah scholars. Warm yourself by their light. Become dusty from the soil beneath their feet and drink their words with thirst. Now we all remember, like, when we said that. So when he said that, and he said, it is well known that the vocation of the evil inclination is to sit by the right side of a person as an adversary and to alienate him from anything which is good, especially since he knows that this will be his downfall. Behold, our sages in Sukkah 52b said, if this immoral one, which is the Yetzer Hara, attacks you, drag him to the Beit Midrash, which is the house of learning. If he's like a stone, he will disintegrate. If he's like a metal, he will shatter, is written in Devarim 32:2. Let my teaching drip like the rain. Just like rain penetrates the stone, so too one who constantly goes to the Beit Midrash and hears words of Torah, moral recidification, and Yirat Shemayim, which is the fear of heaven, will discover that this penetrates his heart of stone, and a proper spirit will be renewed within him. So the more that you surround yourself with that, eventually it'll penetrate.
Let me ask you a question. Are they talking just for men, or is it men and women? When they talk in the Gemara, are they mostly talking to men, or?
Well, when they're talking, it depends. It depends. I mean, first of all, when they wrote these things, men were the students. Men were the students, but there are things like, again, I'll give you a chapter case in point. Nida.
Oh
yeah. You get what I'm saying? Women now, while women are not sitting and learning Nida, in a way they kind of are, because there's so many. That's what I mean. So it you know.
You have a whole book on it.
No, I was just wondering, like in the Gemara, when they were going through all this.
It depends, because like even like in the pages that they're going through right now, they're talking about when you're doing Kriyat Shema, should you be laying down, blah blah blah. So I mean, in a way, men and women eventually, because these are all the things that we do, but men are usually the ones that are learning.
They had a thing which I was studying this week on the Talmud. That's my thing. Is should women learn the Talmud? And many of them were against it, and many of them were for it. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Because the students that we learn about are all men. So they thought
them are. Well, I just heard I don't know if it was Rabbi Mizrahi, but said, that generally men should learn Talmud, but women we do have to know all the laws, so we do have to know that apply to us. Especially.
That was mostly taught by your mother.
No, but not only that, in this week's parsha, in Parshas Yitro, HaShem said to Moshe, give the Torah to the women first.
Right.
And he said, say to the women and tell to the men. They came second. And part of what Hashem's reasoning is because when the women know it, they will also push the husbands to do it. Because women are motivated by love, whereas men are motivated by fear. And so women, in a way, it's funny because there was this little play on word that I think it was Rabbi Sprecher said that, and it's a play on words when they were talking about when Hashem made the woman, and part of it says that when the man is doing what he's supposed to be doing, the woman is like sweet, and when the man is not doing what he's supposed to be doing, she becomes like a battle axe. And so the woman's tafkid is also to learn how to balance that and put that, because sometimes I think we really beat them and we drag them and we.
But it was the 1800s that I think in Poland they had the first class Yaakov school,
right,
where the girls were not getting an education, and
right.
They decided that they would go for
Sarah Schneer.
Yes.
Like even my grandmother says they wouldn't teach the women.
Right.
And this was honestly, it was a big bone of contention with her.
It was a big mistake.
It was and it was funny because
I said it was a big mistake.
And one of the rabbis I talked to after, when I was first coming along, and I told him what she had said, and he literally said, "See, we've learned so much since that time." And I think a lot of them do feel that it was a mistake.
Well, Sarah Schneer, you know who Sarah Schneer or Sarah? She started the base Yaakovite schools, I think. She was a pioneer in her time.
Right.
And a lot of rabbis were against her, but then once she got going, and she went all over Poland or wherever she was, and she set up schools, and she sent other women out to teach.
What happened was,
and then everybody said, "Oh, yay! Look what you did!
The girls were going to the Gentile schools,
right?
Ah,
and they were assimilating.
And they were assimilating, and
that's what you want. What's the right?
This is not gonna work.
Well, that's what happened with my mother. Because they didn't have enough money, so they said the boys have to learn, because they're going to have bar mitzvahs, they have to learn Hebrew, blah, 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 they have to learn Talmud. And they sent my mother to the Polish school, but my mother's like very liberal that way, and and then she sent us to public school, which if she went to a religious school, she would never send
Right.
me to public school.
Well, this is the whole point of what
So
Hashem
nothing
is
to
saying.
destroy
destroyed me.
And even, and again, back into Parshas Yisro, like what we're saying, that if the woman is not righteous, then she has the power to make the man, even if he is righteous, unrighteous.
Right.
If the woman is righteous, even if the man is unrighteous, he will become righteous.
That's right.
The women have an extraordinary amount of influence that Hashem has put into them. And so it is, I think, very crucial for women, especially to cling to Hashem. And, because they are the barrier. If they go down, which you see this happening, the women are becoming liberal. They're not even taking leniencies anymore. They're just taking the whole block. Like, they're saying give an inch and they take about, they're going further than that. And so what happens? Then the men are like, whatever. And then the kids are like, whatever.
That's when we went to the Old the other day, the Rebbe did a whole shore about how the men go out in the world and they have to bring in the substance, the wheat, the food. And he said, but the women have to build the home.
Right. That's exactly
And
right.
if they don't build the home, it's a big disaster.
And believe it or not, and again, it's so funny, like I literally just did this whole thing. In this week's Parsha, Shem also puts a play on words that the ideal for the woman was this homemaker, but the word they used in Hebrew was really one that was a title of honor. And not like the way society puts it, like some housewife, some like...
Well, because the woman educates the children.
Right.
And if you don't educate the children, it's a disaster for generations, like we have.
Right.
That's what we're dealing with.
And you really are a barrier to the husband. Like, if you don't put your foot down, he'll run amok. And that's what Hashem is over and over saying. Like, the men will run amok, ladies. Like, that's why I hate you, So it's so it says, therefore, if he goes one time to the Beit Midrash and he sits there for an hour or two, the Yetzirah will make him depressed. I don't know if you remember, when you were first going back to the derech, you were like, oh, how long until this is over? So it says, as a result, he will choose instead to go to a house of laughter or to just sit idly day and night. And he will not tire or be bored. On the contrary, he will find contentment and self-satisfaction. This was the complaint of Kadosh Baruch Hu in Yeshayahu 43:22 and Yaakov, you did not call out to me because you have tired of me, O Israel. However, the man who is pure and has removed the veil of blindness from his eyes will surely know that in order to be a proper Jew, a servant of Hashem must control his Yetzirah. It is sufficient that he control his Yetzirah so that he can learn on his own or listen to instruction constantly, even against his will and not for his own benefit. In the end, it will become sweet and pleasant. He will continue to grow and ascend the paths of Jewishness, frugality, and piety. As is well known, it is the unique nature of the Torah to eliminate the spirit of impurity. Consequently, the Kadosh Baruch Hu said in Yerushalmi Higaga Perek 1 Halacha 7, would that they abandon me but keep my Torah, for the light that is in it will bring them back to the proper way. One who goes through the stages will become wise, and he will discover the path of life. Therefore, do this and live. Now, and actually, that was the end of that. That was the end of that chapter. By the way, I think that I mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. And he actually talks about this. Ironically, he talks about this. I'm not sure if it's in this book or in the second book, but he talks about that whenever you study the works of the sage, you actually move their mouth in the grave. And he becomes an advocate for you. I mean, he's a really great, learn from the beginning, because these people are...
That's what Shleim also said. Did he say it the other day? Where part of your spirit still stays
Right.
Yeah, he did.
with you.
Yeah, in the grave.
In the grave.
Yeah.
So that's what they're
Or part
saying
of your
here.
neshama
Right.
is still in the grave, because we're different
there's like
five
different levels,
parts-
right?
There's 5 parts of the neshama.
Right.
So some of them are still up. Even when we're alive, some of it is still up there. And
Right.
then at night, more of it goes up
Right.
and comes.
Right.
No wonder we don't know what we're coming and going.
Right.